What's up, Rick? How you doing?
Buddy?
You came in strong.
I came in strong because I'm focused on a very important question, and I'd like your opinion.
Okay.
Do you have an opinion whether it's appropriate to drink your own urine?
I do have an opinion, and without judging whether or not you did, I'm going to say only if it's life or death, yes, I do have an opinion on it, and no, it's not appropriate.
Uh-oh. Well, then I'm a two-time loser. No,
But it's good to know.
I'm just curious because you see all kinds of interesting alternative medical ideas, or I guess they're alternative health ideas, where drinking urine has become kind of a thing.
Really?
Yeah, especially in North Scottsdale. It's been amazing.
Are you serious?
No.
Okay.
No. It's like hot dog water.
Okay.
One of those things I had to say.
All right.
So what's our topic today?
So our topic today is about the journey.
Oh, okay.
And this writer that I listened to a podcast on, Min Lee, he said that success is a term that is loaded with outcome. And the real juice is in the journey. The real joy is there. And so that's what he's focused his whole life on, is the journey. And I think that's a big part of Zen, isn't it?
Yes, it is. The idea that process is what counts. It's not the end result, because in essence there is never an end result.
Right.
Because there's always the next thing. So it's the minor little steps of anything that you're doing, whether you're talking about a particular task or a job, or you're talking about just enjoying your life and proceeding through it. There's no like deferring the joy until some later time, until it's all done, and then you can relax. It's a process all the time, inclusive.
You know, until listening to this podcast with him, I never really considered, how I view, success. I think I always just kind of, defined it as I was taught to see it, which is that it's the thing that matters most. It's the only thing that matters. And over the last maybe like 10 or 15 years, I began to hear people say that the process or the journey was really important, but I still kind of lean more towards success, like still mattering. And that's really not the case now, especially after listening to this podcast and with our morning practice. I'm really more in tune with just being fully with the journey, fully with the process, and whatever turns out, or what doesn't turn out, doesn't turn out.
Let me ask you a question then. Let's see if this is really true. So do you still root for a particular sports team?
Yes, I still root for a particular sports team, but my practice has become that if that team doesn't win, I'm good with it.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good enlightened. That's pretty good.
Yeah, whereas before, I would not be good with it.
Throwing shoes at the TV.
I'm upset with them. How could these guys do it? And it was a journey that I kind of went on for that. I used to be upset with the athletes, especially if I'd read in the newspaper or the sports section the next day that this guy just went, 0 for 5, in the fourth quarter, not making a basket, or he dropped the winning pass, and he's, out to dinner or, in the club. I'm like, man, he's not taking this as seriously as I am.
Right.
He wakes up the next day, he's still, I'm still a millionaire. I'm punching the clock. And so I would, be offended by it. And then I got like, man, that guy gets that it's about the journey, and he gets it. And so I've really, and I think when I make it all about the outcome, or even partially about the outcome, that it takes the fun out of it. Like I can't even enjoy it because I've got some stake. I got this figurative, skin in the game. And there's no fun in that, man.
You know what I noticed when I was a partisan sports fan, and I always wanted things to turn out my way, including sports as well as my career. With sports, if you watch a game as a fan and you're not interested in process, you're interested in the outcome, you only see half the game.
Right.
Because you only appreciate the good things that happen to your team.
Right.
When the other team does something really great, it's like, it's aggravating. It's not a source of joy. But if you focus on process, and by process in this context, I would mean how well the game is played, you can enjoy a full game by watching both teams, not the one you're rooting for, but both teams engage in a very interesting, finesse, powerful, and well-played game. And it's much more enjoyable.
And I think that applies to life too, right?
Totally.
You know,
That's
to business. I mean, one of the things that can be really divisive is politics. But I think if both sides of it came together with this idea that we just really want what's in the best interest of everyone, I think that they could appreciate where the other person was coming from. I mean, what do you think?
Oh, totally. I think that's a very interesting concept. I think we're going to see the pendulum swing to a place where we're less contentious. We've got to go that way. I mean, it's so uncivil now. And I would say that we could take, let's say 10 or 12 people, just random 10 or 12 people, anybody walking around at the gas station, buying cigarettes at the Circle K, 10, 12 random people, I don't care the gender, I don't care the age, put them all in a room, give them a hypothetical problem, and because there's no political parties or there's no agenda about our side versus your side, it's just a bunch of random folks figuring out a problem, they'd come up with a pretty dang good solution.
I think so too.
And that's the tragedy, because we're so stuck on all of this, you know, you're wrong and I'm gonna, you know, that's the way you think and that's terrible and you're, that's just goofy. It's just a waste of everybody's time.
Exactly, because it's all about the outcome. And I think when it has to be successful, we have to win. It has to produce this particular outcome.
Our side has to win.
Yeah, our side. Yeah, our
That's
side
the
has to
problem.
win.
Not the whole.
Not all of us win.
That's right.
The greater good win.
That's right.
But when that happens, I think you're more apt to maybe not do things that are in the best interest of the whole. Maybe you'll cut corners. Maybe you'll withhold something that could be beneficial to the other side or to other people. I think it really compromises your ability to be open, to be loving, to be kind as much as you can. I mean, think about this. If you're going in for an interview and you are advanced some of the questions for the interview. Now, if your thing, if what informs the way you show up is to be loving and kind and be of service of others, do you share the interview questions with other candidates that you might know? If I argue that if you are almost solely or even partially focused on success and the outcome of you getting the position, if that's what you're focused on, I don't think you share the questions. I don't think you're loving and kind and collaborative. But someone who is could be like, hey, listen, I've advanced the questions. Why don't we prepare for this together? You know? I mean, what kind of individual do you have to be to do that, right?
Yeah, that's
you know what I'm saying? Like that's incredible. Let's train together. I mean, I had a friend one time, and we were doing a triathlon and training for together, or we thought we were, and he didn't let us in on any of his training because it was about being number one. And there were some events that he was more skilled or more competent than we were in, but there were others that we brought something to the table too. And so, but he did all of his training, everything in secret. We never knew what his bike time was. We never knew, like it wasn't a situation to where he sought to make it a shared experience in which we all contribute to, each of us doing our personal best. And I can look at my own life and I can see some times in which I wasn't the best partner or collaborative because I was so laser focused on the outcome, and it's just no fun looking back on it. While I may have won, I mean, it didn't really, if I really looked at it, it didn't feel like winning.
Well, and it was the way you won too. And what is winning? What is winning? I mean, let's talk about a love relationship. You're dealing with a situation where you can't win a love relationship. What does it look like to win a love relationship? Somebody attractive thinks you're a god or a king or something? I mean, is that something that's superficial winning? Maybe winning has nothing to do with love. It's all about collaboration. It's a great word. Cooperation, trying to problem solve, and sharing life's joys and trying to divide and some of the sorrow that comes from life's heartaches with the person that you love. So I guess process in many ways has nothing to do with outcome, and in fact it's antithetical to outcome.
Yes.
And that leads me to the idea, the Buddhist idea of detachment. And it doesn't mean that because you are focused on process that you don't give a damn about the outcome. Rather, it means we're focused as working as hard and as closely together as we can if we're dealing with a collaborative situation. Or if it's individual, I'm working as hard as I can to complete this task. But once that is done, you let it go. You detach from outcome. You detach from what the result is.
Yes.
Because that's beyond your pay grade. That's the universe to decide whether it was good or no, right?
Cook, baby, cook.
Yeah,
Cook, baby.
This is hard to do, though, but it's true. If you just let it go and let it be decided by powers beyond your control, it, I think, is so much more healthy. And it feels a lot better, too, because you're not sweating that anxious feeling that you could have done more, the guilt about not doing enough. All of that goes away. It just doesn't occur to you. You've worked as hard as you can. You've done your best. It's over. Move on to the next thing.
You know, why don't we give an example
Okay.
or two of exactly that, you know, the practice. So oftentimes I have to give a presentation for a healthcare company that I work at. And I remember the early days when I was still trying to navigate success, what I define, and just being with the process. And I was still, you know, I thought I was really more into the process because, you know, I'm 2 years into my daily routine. Like, I got this thing down. No, you can still go deeper. And here's how I know that I was still married to success. Because as I prepared for this presentation, a couple of days before, they changed it and said, hey, listen, this extra 15 minutes that you were going to contribute or present on, you know, that you worked on, we just want you to do 5 minutes. Like, so I'm like, oh my God, like it won't be nearly as successful, it won't be impactful, I have to leave things out. That's because I wouldn't have had their reaction if I had been solely content, peaceful, one with the process. Because the process enough would have given me all the joy I needed, all the fulfillment that I needed.
Beautiful.
My job is just here to serve, and it's just like what you said, is that the outcome that's up to the universe. That's beyond my pay grade.
That's right.
I need to stay in my lane, practice gratitude, be loving, kind, compassionate, accept, practice gratitude, repeat. Like serve, you know, that's it.
That's right.
And when I'm doing that every single day and in the process, then the idea of success, if it happens, if there's a such thing, or the outcome goes the way that I might prefer it to go, cool. And if it doesn't, cool too. Because I'm already filled up and I'm already sustained. And so that's an example for me.
Let me give you one for me.
Oh, please.
And this involves you as well.
Okay.
These podcasts. Now, these podcasts are something that we do totally spontaneously. We sit down and decide what we want to talk about, and we try to gear it to things that we have struggled with ourselves and know how difficult it might be for others, and just try to share what our own experiences have been. And I think you've heard us over the years admit all of the goofball stuff we've done and all the blind alleys and everything else. So it's not like it's lecturing, but we don't prepare anything, and I think part of the reason for that is that we want to speak from the heart. And so you're going to hear a lot of things, or you do hear a lot of things that are unpolished, and you hear things that we probably could have done a better job on if we had read and memorized a script, but that would also take away from the spontaneity of this relationship and sharing that, which has its own value. So my point is that if we were focused on the outcome, we have to make sure they get these 5 takeaways, or these 5 bullet points.
And we had to be perfect.
And we had to be perfect, it would get in the way. And it's the exact opposite of what you want for outcome, but we're not focused on outcome. We're just 2 guys talking, sharing about life experience.
Right, exactly.
And that is the value on its own, a great value for both us and hopefully some of you. And you can pick and choose, you know, it's not like we don't have any axe to grind. We're not depending on your subscription to keep this show rolling, you know.
Exactly. And you know, it's the process. And when I say the process, it's every detail in that particular moment. So for me, the detail is, when I know we're going to do a couple of shows, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. The process is literally, I set the camera up, Rick puts a mic on, I put a mic on, I say, what do you want to talk about? He says, what do you want to talk about? And then within 2 minutes, we're pressing record. That's our process. But leading up to that, we are not anxious. We're not obsessive thinking about it has to be perfect. We're not worried about how the last show did. We don't even track it. We don't know. We hope that people are watching it, but if they're not, that's cool too. But the setup part of it, the day before, I bring the lights out. I'm just bring the lights out, getting them in the position. I make sure the mics have batteries in them. I'm being totally with putting the batteries in. Rick is at home getting up that morning. He's eating breakfast, just being with breakfast, looking out at his garden. He's getting in the car, he's driving here. You're not worried about whether or not the light's gonna be on, whether Keith is gonna be on time to have the studio open, whether the AC is blowing when he gets there, if there's a cold, chill bottle of water waiting for him. Like none of that's happening. Like we're just, he's just at mile marker, whatever. And then he's at the next mile marker and just enjoying the drive, right? It's like,
that's right.
Every bit of that is where the juice is, as Rick would say. That's where the joy is in those moments, each one of them. And at work, it's not rushing to get to your workstation. It's noticing people along the way.
That's right.
If they're within 5 feet of you, you're greeting them with a smile. 10 feet of you, you're greeting them with a smile. If they're within 5 feet, you're saying hello. Like he's being present to them, noticing a haircut, noticing the shoes, noticing the flowers. Are there birds there? Well, those guys are doing construction. Not being annoyed by the construction, but just being like, oh man, people are gainfully employed. That's cool. Yeah.
You're getting poetic in your old age. That was very good. No, I love that.
I'm just being with the moment, man, and the process. And every day is filled with seconds and minutes of the process.
Yeah, and that's what your building block of your life is all of those little moments. So your choice is, am I going to focus on whether this presentation is going to work out and it'll be terrible if I don't, and I'll get fired. You're going to focus on all of that, or you're going to focus on the moments that you have in your life up until the time of the presentation that you'll lose if you don't notice them and if you're not present to them.
Right. So it's not even about losing, in your case, the case. It's about the moments leading up to the case, right? Losing those. So how do you approach, your practice? I know you're semi-retired now, but even as you go into a case now.
I still try cases, and believe me, they're high stakes cases, and they're very important, and I'm not taking any of that lightly. When I'm talking about working hard and then detaching, that's exactly what I mean. I'm doing every damn thing I can think of to advance my client's cause. And I'm using all my training and my experience and my history of success and knowing what works and doesn't to get to that end. But the difference is, on the way through it, that's not all I'm doing. I'm noticing other things about my life. I'm still being present in my life. And when I sit down after I've given my closing argument, I'm done with it. It's it. That's all I can do.
Now, how does that contribute to your client? So, for example, if you were operating from the old Rick, right, who would be so focused on outcome and not having been present in the flow state for the process, how would that affect your client?
I think the difference is that part of competence in a courtroom comes from being able to think on your feet, and also when you're thinking on your feet, it needs to come from a calm, reflective place. And if you're too nervous and too anxious and you're relying on notes and you're thinking hard about this and this,
and it's got to be perfect because I got to win this case.
It gets in the way. That becomes the problem you have to get past in order to be effective. And
your client can feel this emotionally.
And even if the client can't, I'm sure they can. Anybody can see a nervous person. Even if they can't see that, the reality is it reflects on the value of the work. Mm-hmm. People, when I try a case, this is way beyond the scope of this process idea, I think, but let me just add this one little point. When I try a case, what I try to do is I try to explain it in a way and present evidence and call witnesses that show both the good points that we have and also some of our weak points. Because I want to be able to say to the jury, we're showing you the truth, and the truth isn't always all one way or all the other way, like the defense or the plaintiff is claiming. It's both ways, but here's why we should prevail. Even though we've made some mistakes, here's why. And you've got black and white evidence that shows it. You've got testimony that you can play back for the jury that they've heard, that you can remind them of. You can read the jury instructions that say this kind of behavior results in this kind of action, and the jury should find accordingly. So my point is that you don't insult people by being an advocate to such a degree that you override their common sense. You give them all of the facts, and you trust them to make the right outcome.
Right. And this process by which you are present to and detaching from the outcome after the work has been done, what has that meant for your own peacefulness?
Well, I couldn't practice as a trial lawyer for 40 years if I didn't have that. It's too much. I mean, it's like a trial lawyer is like being a fighter pilot. It really is, and it really is a young man's game. I've stayed in it too long. I love it though. But the problem with it is it creates that kind of anxiety, guilt, and shame and worry that I don't want any part of in my life.
It's been amazing that you have taken on this approach to living and to being and cultivating and clearing the trappings of the mind out of the way so consciousness can come through that allows you to be present for the process, be peaceful, be joyful along the way. And for Rick, he just gave an example of what it is like in his life from the standpoint of being an attorney. For other people, it could be a small business owner, it could be a large business owner,
Sure.
It could be a parent.
Absolutely.
All of it all comes, that stuff doesn't matter. What matters is that attend to the process, not the outcome, not whether or not it's going to be successful or not. That is not where real living takes place. While you still may get things done, you're not doing so at your best. And others are not winning, if I'm going to use the word winning in this conversation about success and process. But when you're doing that, other people aren't experiencing the best of what you have to offer, and you're not creating a space for them to be their best either. And so it's all about serving others, and the process is the way in which to do that.
And we're not talking about not caring about outcome. That's not what this is about. It's about doing your best, focusing on what the goal is, building whatever it is you need to do to get to that goal, and then detaching from the outcome. So you're not focused totally on the outcome. You're focused on the process of making sure that you've done everything you can to bring it about. But once it's in the can, it's in the can.
Right. And if that's too far a leap for people to say, how can I be detached from the outcome? Then for now, just change the definition of the outcome, and not it being win or lose, but rather make it, or consider making it be, the outcome is at the end of the day, that was my best product. And you just make it about your best. Excellent. And then every step that you do leading up to that best end product, you've been present to, and that's been the process.
Man, that's fabulous. That's exactly the right way to look at it. Yeah, at your best every step of the process, and enjoying the process and the steps as you go.
Exactly.
And not the outcome.
Exactly. Perfect.
I love you, man.
I love you too, Rick.
This is a great show. I really
Thanks, man.
enjoyed this.
I love you, man. Thank you so much, Rick.